up, everybody? Welcome to the Ripple Effect Podcast. Today we got an awesome guest. We got Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. He's from naturalnews.com. It's a guest that actually I have a lot of friends who've text messaged me and stuff, and just excited about having him on. He hits on topics. His website, he's the editor for naturalnews.com, for people who don't know his work. And it's just a really awesome website to just check up on. I mean, they hit on tons of topics. Hopefully we hit on a lot of them today. And just from everything from nutrition to problem with prescription drugs, GMOs, fluoride. I mean, all these topics that I think we don't have enough time ourselves to do research on. So it's awesome to have a source like naturalnews.com that hit on all these topics. And follow them on Twitter, check out the website. And it's just an awesome place to, get information and kind of save you the trouble from doing your own research. So I just think health is such an important topic. And as busy as we are with our everyday lives, it's we don't have a lot of time to eat good or really do our own research. So it's important to get this information out there and spark these conversations and let people know what exactly it will be helpful with their diets and exercise and what isn't helpful. So first I just want to thank Mike Adams for being with us today.
Hello, Ricky. Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm really honored to join your show, and I like the title of your podcast, by the way, The Ripple Effect.
Thanks. Yeah, that's the whole purpose of it was basically to do what I'm hoping to do today, and that's spark interesting conversations and get interesting information out there, and hope that it kind of starts a ripple effect of getting this information out there. Hopefully somebody will take something from the show, have interesting guests like you that can really bring some some really important information to the show and hopefully spark conversation. And that's really, that's kind of me doing my part. I kind of feel like it's my way of trying to find fulfillment and feel like I can wake up in the morning feeling like I'm doing my part and trying to, I guess, provoke thought. So
well, you are on your part, and I really honor what you're doing. And I think we live in a society today where a lot of people don't realize how powerful they are in terms of being able to influence others or have that ripple effect. I think that we're taught as a society to sort of fall in line and conform and do what we're told, and not to really explore, discover, innovate, express who we are, or ask questions about things that might not yet be accepted. So we are all living ripple effects in a sense. That's why I like the title of your show. And it's just that a lot of us humans don't express the true potential of what we can be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I definitely think that we're basically told to work a job we hate, to buy shit we don't need, to then die. And I think we're capable of so much more. And I think that that dumbing down of the population goes from everything from media to news to to foods. I know you've hit on fluoride, which is a really interesting topic because it's one of those things where I think most people don't know the history of it and don't realize that we're all drinking it, and the fact that it's basically waste and it's not it's not a natural fluoride, and just the history of it. And I've heard you talk about it, how the Nazis have used it. So, and I think there's a connection with the pineal gland too, and
sure.
Which is some people consider the third eye, and yeah.
Well, I'm really glad you brought this up, because one of the areas of research that I'm working on right now, and just as background, so your audience knows, I do run a laboratory, an atomic spectroscopy lab, where we test foods for heavy metals contamination. And I use a university level instrument with a plasma torch to accomplish that, ICP-MS instrumentation. And one of the areas that I'm really interested in researching, and I've started some of the research in this area, is looking at how foods and environmental contaminants shut down our consciousness. So, we are conscious beings. We have awareness. We have there's a non-chemical, non-physical element to who we are. Some people call it a soul or a spirit or a mind, if you will. This element has to interface with the physical brain in order to have sensory experiences and carry out your decisions, carry out your free will decisions. So you have a non-material element that's interfacing with the material brain, but the material brain can be blocked and shut down by chemicals and heavy metals and things that are put into the food supply on purpose, such as MSG and aspartame and so on, and things that are put into the water supply on purpose, such as the hydrofluosilicic acid, or sometimes called fluoride.
Yeah.
So we need to do a lot more research in this area of how are we spiritually shut down, or how is our consciousness shut down? Our awakening is kept asleep by all of these contaminants in our foods, because I think that we as a civilization, we're making, we're making kind of the same mistake that the Romans made with lead in the aqueducts, and they were poisoning themselves with lead and they didn't even know it, and their civilization fell, possibly as a result of people going mad from lead poisoning.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, from all your research and stuff like that, what do you think is the biggest mistake people are doing with their diet, or the biggest myth that we're assuming is healthy and we could, and basically isn't? I know I've read tons of different things, and you always hear colliding views, and you hear one study that says this is healthy, another study says something else isn't healthy. Is there one thing that you really think is the biggest myth in diet and nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to shock a lot of people, but the biggest myth is that any given diet is something that's going to be good for you over and over and over again. I've seen people on a raw food diet. I've seen people on a vegan diet. I've seen people on the Atkins diet, a paleo diet, you name it. Usually, these diets, when you pursue them on an ongoing basis, they lead to nutritional imbalances. And I've seen it in so many people. I've seen, for example, raw vegans. I've seen vegans have massive problems with a lack of omega-3 oils. So they can sometimes have skin disorders, or chapped lips is very common in raw vegans. Now, a raw vegan diet is great for a detox. Don't get me wrong. And I'm a huge advocate of it for that purpose. It'll clear out your arteries. It'll clear out your colon. It's a great detox diet. But it's not, like, any of these diets are not something that you should do in a strict, limited way over and over again, where you're eating only the same 10 foods over and over and over again. What I've learned, and this is also something that's come out of the lab, is that the best diet is a really wide range, a diverse selection of foods. And so, sometimes you hear people, well, I'm on a grapefruit diet. Yeah, that's gonna cause disease. You take any fruit. If someone says, I'm on an apple cider diet, that's going to cause problems too. Or someone's on a cabbage soup diet. You've heard that. It's going to cause problems, because the human body was designed to get this incredible assortment, this symphony of nutrients from all these different foods at different times, and not to be locked into one kind of diet over and over and over again. Those kind of diets only exacerbate nutritional deficiencies and exposure to dietary toxins such as heavy metals like lead, cadmium, mercury, and so on. It's the diverse diet. And by diverse, obviously I don't mean junk foods and processed foods. I mean fresh produce, fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, a little bit of free-range meat if you eat meat, but not too much, but mostly a plant-based, widely selected, colorful diet. That's the best diet for humans, I believe.
Yeah, and you read a lot about that. I've read a lot about just trying to get back to basically when we're hunter-gatherers what we ate, and like you said, we didn't have the ability to go to the store and buy the same foods every single day and eat the same thing every single day. You almost had to just pick, whatever fruit was growing or whatever you could kill. So we were probably getting, like you said, a lot of different types of nutrition. And there's things in every different type of fruits and meats that are important. So it's just like everything has its benefit. When you cut out, meats, if you cut out a certain type of fruit or you cut out whatever, I mean, that there's probably some benefit from it that you're probably missing out on. So I think it is important. I even read a lot about just fats, because we've kind of been deceived, or at least from my understanding, that we've been deceived with carbs. People think that carbs are really bad for you and stay away from carbs and stay away from fats. But really, fats aren't quite as bad for you as people think they are, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I remember when I was growing up and we were told that butter was bad and avocados were bad and eggs were bad, and you were supposed to eat this margarine stuff, which is, partially hydrogenated, genetically modified soybean oil. That's all over television. Margarine was touted by scientists and doctors, saying this is what's going to prevent heart disease and keep you healthy. Don't you dare eat a fresh egg or an avocado, or butter, God forbid, have a slice of butter. So this is what was being propagated in the 1970s and the 1980s. And now we know it's complete nonsense. So all those doctors and scientists who are saying that are just completely ignorant of reality. Now, I'm not saying all doctors and scientists are ignorant, but they do tend to jump on bandwagons of ignorance.
Well,
So,
oh, I'm sorry.
well, no, go ahead. What's your question?
I was going to say the thing about doctors. I think the big problem with it, and I've had Dr. Gregory A. Smith from the movie American Addict on, and we talked about this. And I've had Dr. Brzezinski on, which I'm sure you're familiar with his work too. And another Texas. You're from Texas, right? Another.
Called Austin.
Yeah. And he one thing we talk about is how doctors all they learn is pharmaceutical drugs. They don't know anything about natural remedies. And I have a buddy who owns a supplement store. He can't even tell you that a remedy can help cure something or help prevent something. You know, it's like they have these restrictions on what they basically can say under labels and stuff. So a lot of people, unless you actually know what you're going in to look for, you can't just pick up a bottle and say, oh, this is good for this and that and that. You almost have to do your own research and know what you're going in to buy, because they're so restricted on labels and stuff like that. And that's a big problem with doctors, is that they literally just learn pharmaceutical drugs. Here's a symptom and here's the pill to treat it, and all these other natural remedies and stuff like that, alternatives, which I always feel like something synthetic, like you said, margarine can compare to butter or anything else. If you put something natural in your body, like a vitamin or something, worst case scenario, it doesn't work. But you put something synthetic in your body's not going to recognize it. We've have a history of eating this meats and fruits and stuff, so we take it in. Our body knows what you're consuming and how to digest it. Now you take in something synthetic. Why do you see this giant list of side effects? Because your body doesn't know what the fuck it is. It's looking at it like, what do you just put in me? I don't know what, and then you have this list of side effects that are usually worse than what you're trying to treat in the first place. So do you think that's a huge issue with that? The fact that doctors are basically they're isolated to just learn medicine or synthetic medicine and not natural medicine, or they don't even look at natural medicine as medicine, really?
The real hidden hand behind this is corporate profits and corporate interests. If you look at the history of medicine and the history of science, both medicine and science have always been for sale, in a sense, to corporate interests. You could go back to big tobacco and the smoking industry. Back in the 1920s and 30s and 40s, the Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, used to run full-page ads for Camel's cigarettes, quoting doctors saying that more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. The doctors were telling people cigarettes are great for you. They help you concentrate, give you better memory, better work performance. Smoke away. That industry told doctors to say it, so doctors said it. They got paid to say that. And a lot of scientists at the same time were doing it. Well, the same phenomenon is happening today with GMOs. And it was happening a few decades ago with Agent Orange and DDT and triclosan and margarine, like we talked about. The history of nutritional advice and medical advice has always been a history of corrupt, evil, destructive, anti-humanitarian corporations trying to shove poisons down our throats and telling us it's good for us. Whether it's pesticides, herbicides, GMOs, glyphosate, all these things, cigarettes, psychiatric drugs for children, drugging your 9-year-old kid. All of these have one thing in common, which is these corporations just trying to sell us poison, but convince us that it's somehow good for us. That's the big picture history of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and hitting on the DSM, that the book for I forget what it stands for, but it basically just for mental issues.
Bible. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just it's really bullshit if you ask me, because the idea that you look at most things, if you have an issue, they go to a specialist, they check to see what's wrong with you, then they give you something for it. But when you go in for depression or whatever, they call it a chemical imbalance. They never really tell you which chemical is in balance or how imbalance that chemical is. Then they give you a pill which they don't that is treating or doing God knows what, and then you look at like the links between antidepressants and mass shootings and Prozac in the what was it, in the 90s, when they were having issues with people who were like killing their family or attempted to kill themselves and
sure.
All this stuff. I mean, and it seems like and there's a great documentary called, I think it's Making a Killing. And it's on YouTube, I believe, and it tells you the whole history of the DSM, which is basically the book that they, you probably can explain it better than I can, but what exactly the DSM is. But would you, do you know the history of that? And
Yeah, Absolutely, but I want to give you a little more history before that.
Okay.
Go back to the origins of modern psychiatry, and you have to look at a doctor named Dr. Henry Cotton. His last name's spelled just like what your jeans are made out of, cotton. And Dr. Henry Cotton was a psychiatrist, and he was a big shot in the medical community many decades ago. And he came up with these theories that people went crazy because they had diseased tissue in their teeth and their gums and their jawbones, and he would, quote, treat psychiatric patients by pulling all their teeth out and drilling into their jawbones and actually cutting out gum tissue and jawbone tissue and calling it medical treatment. And look at the word hysterectomy. When women undergo this procedure, they have, crucial organs removed, right? Reproductive organs. Well, hysterectomy in Latin, it means to remove the hysteria. So women were perceived at that time by the medical establishment, top of the line doctors and surgeons. They thought women were driven crazy by the fact that they have these reproductive organs, and that if you could remove the organs, you would take out the crazy. That was their belief, and that's why they named it hysterectomy. The ectomy means to remove, and the hyster is hysteria. So this is the foundation of modern psychiatry, is to say that people are crazy because of these chemical reasons, or these tissue reasons, or these physical organs that have problems, and we should cut them out. And obviously psychiatry is insane, right? We know that. But today it has evolved to the point where they claim chemical imbalances in the brain. But it always comes down to a material thing, a physical thing, a chemical thing. They never talk about, oh, maybe this kid has a learning problem because he's got poor parenting skills, or maybe life is complex and he needs support. Maybe he needs a big brother, a mentor, somebody to help him along. Or maybe there's heavy metals poisoning even that's affecting their brain function. So all they want to do is give them drugs, because drugs make money. So we've got today 10% of our children in this country are on psychiatric drugs. It's unbelievable. And it's a crime against children. It's a crime against humanity, if you ask me.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is when money gets involved in medicine, then it just, I remember one day I was in a doctor's office, and I have to go to doctors with my parents because I have to translate for them. They don't speak much English, and I remember being there, and I was a young kid, and the salesman walks in with a briefcase, and he goes to the front desk, and he's like, "Oh, I'm here from Pfizer or whatever," and whatever, I think it was Pfizer. And I'm looking at this guy. I'm like, holy shit, this guy looks just like a salesman. I'm like, wait, but he sells medicine. Why does he look like a salesman? And then it hit me at a young age. I'm like, holy shit, these people are just salesmen. I'm like, they're just selling, there's no money. It's like Chris Rock said, there's no money in a cure. There's a money in giving you a pill you have to take for the rest of your life. You look at, we talked about Dr. Brzezinski. I mean, this is a guy that was in Suzanne Summers' book, Knockout. He's been on Dr. Oz's show, and this guy he just has this treatment that could help people. And he's been sued by the FDA numerous of times, and there's many cases like that. You look at the thing that happened in what was it, India, I believe, where with Bayer, where they had this cancer treatment drug that was too expensive for the people of India. Then they wanted to do a generic version of it, and then the CEO of Bayer says, "Oh, this is for." The price was for Western culture. It wasn't supposed to be for India, and that's why the price was so expensive. And so it's all about money. And so when you look at what could people do today and eating, what could if somebody's listening and saying what would be a great start to kind of helping change their diet and focus on the right foods? I know you brought up eggs, which eggs and butter is a perfect example, because I put butter in my coffee in the morning, a little bit of butter, and I think it's awesome. It helps time release, it seems like, the caffeine a little bit, and butter really isn't that bad for you, like you said, because it's natural and your body recognizes it. And eggs is the other thing. The yolks, we've been told that it's wicked bad for cholesterol and this and that, and all these things. And I know this 82-year-old woman who eats 4 eggs every morning, and she's the healthiest person, and she takes vitamins. She doesn't take any she wouldn't take any synthetic medicines ever, and she's 82 years old, and she's like, her simple logic is, you find out what your body needs, and you take it in from vitamins and minerals, and you can help prevent a lot of things. And I think that's a debate that we have a lot, is there's a lot of people like what's Dr. Offit or whatever his name is, that tries to tell you that vitamins aren't good for you. And do you find yourself defending vitamins? You get that debate a lot about, are vitamins good for you? Are they not? I mean, vitamins are just food. So if food's good for you, it only makes sense vitamins good for you, right?
I really don't get that debate very much at all, because I think most people have come to realize that those few people out there that are promoting pesticides and promoting GMOs and saying vitamins are bad, that those people are insane and irrelevant. They're kind of like flat Earth scientists, if you will. They're just, they don't matter in the equation anymore. Look, the rest of the world wants to have good nutrition. They want to know what's in their food. They want their food labeled to know whether it contains GMOs or not. Most of the world wants to know what they're eating, and they want to improve their health, and they recognize there's a link between nutrition and disease prevention. So, that's, anybody who argues against that, it just kind of embarrasses themselves. All the rest of us realize that healthy foods are medicine. And so when the FDA says there's no such thing as a food that has any ability to treat, prevent, or cure a disease, well, that's nonsense. Of course there are foods that can prevent disease. Why did the sailors on the ships hundreds of years ago carry limes and lemons to prevent scurvy? Because they had vitamin C. Of course foods can prevent disease. We've known this for hundreds and hundreds of years in modern society. The FDA pretends it's not true, but they're not fooling anyone. We know that foods are medicine. In fact, they should be your first medicine. We know that plants actually synthesize amazing molecules, that every plant is its own pharmacy, in a sense, that plants actually generate their own antibiotics, which they tend to put in the roots. Otherwise, the soil microbes would eat the roots of every plant. I mean, every plant generates antibiotic drugs, if you will, every one of them. Every plant synthesizes medicines in its leaves, in its stalks, stems, and fruits. Every plant does this because it can't run out to the pharmacy and buy a drug and take it. It has to build it itself, because plants can't migrate. I mean, they can't get up on two legs and walk around. So they have to build all these nutrients and all these medicines themselves. And that's why plants are just amazing storehouses and treasures of natural medicine that can prevent and cure almost every disease that now haunts mankind. We already know how to cure cancer. We already know how to cure diabetes. We already know how to cure heart disease and dementia, kidney disorders and liver disorders. It's been out there in nature for as long as humans have ever been around. So, it's an insane society that tries to pretend that these medicines don't exist or don't work in the natural world, and then tries to get us all just to take these synthetic, patented, high-profit, big pharma chemicals so that some fat cat corporate CEO can make another $50 million bonus this year by selling people chemicals they don't need, or they could get for free in their own backyard by eating weeds. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. And I've been into nutrition at a young age, and I really got into vitamins, and I remember when I was young, I didn't really care too much about them, but as I got older and as my knees started hurting and it started having other issues as you get older, you start finding alternatives to Advil, anti-inflammatory, like ibuprofen. You find things like omega-3s help with inflammation, MSN, which is a natural one with inflammation. I take stuff, I play basketball, and I take tons of stuff for my joints, and I'll tell you, if it wasn't for taking glucosamine, chondroitin, and MSN, I probably wouldn't be able to be playing sports at 30 or 29, almost 30, like I do today. It's thanks to that, and I've been to a doctor's, and they just say, my knees are bad because of all the years of playing basketball when I was younger and squatting and stuff like that. And they don't tell me anything. And then I find out that I can take these pills that help with inflammation, help with cartilage, and just all these natural remedies. And I think that it's a shame that there's so many natural remedies for so many different things, if not all things. And really most people don't even know about them, and just go to the doctor, anytime they have an issue, and then the doctor writes them a prescription to something that really only treats the symptom, doesn't really get to the root of the issue.
Well, keep in mind, the disease is a multi-billion-dollar business. It's almost 1/5 of the U.S. economy. And it's far worse than what you've described there, by the way. I'll give you a specific example. The cancer industry in particular preys on African-American men and women because it knows that people of dark skin color have skin pigments that block ultraviolet sun from generating vitamin D. And thus, most black men and women in the United States are chronically deficient in vitamin D. And this has been shown in the scientific literature. In fact, I'm about to roll out another article on this very point. And yet, the cancer industry absolutely refuses to tell black men and women that they need extra vitamin D because they're black, that they actually need to look at their skin and understand the dynamic of ultraviolet radiation, vitamin D deficiency, and its links to breast cancer and prostate cancer. They need to empower African Americans with information about how to take more vitamin D and prevent cancer. But instead, they look at black men and women as winning the lottery in terms of revenues for cancer treatments. A black woman walks in the door, they give her a mammogram, they find something, 9 out of 10 times it's a false positive, and then they can scare her into taking chemotherapy, which earns hundreds of thousands of dollars for these cancer clinics that are giving out the false diagnoses. So this is a racist medicine scam that is taking place in America today, specifically targeting African Americans and not telling them what they need to know to prevent cancer and be healthy, because they could prevent cancer for about a nickel a day by taking vitamin D. It's unbelievable. And one of my missions has been to try to educate people of darker skin color, which includes Latinos. They not as dark as African Americans, obviously, but they tend to have darker skin that blocks some of the ultraviolet light so they can have some vitamin D deficiencies. But I'm trying to educate people as to why this is so important. And yet mainstream medicine won't tell the truth. It's unbelievable.
Are you familiar with Dr. Gerson?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, he's another one. I haven't read anything on him in a while, but I remember when I first ran into his work, and then there's a documentary, I think, The Beautiful Truth, or I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, Beautiful Truth, yeah, Max Gerson, and now I think it's his granddaughter that's now running the show there with the Gerson clinics in Mexico. But that's focused more on juicing and cleansing with fresh juices and a lot of water, avoiding salt, things like that.
Yeah. But it's another example of somebody who believed that a lot of diseases and a lot of issues could be prevented just by changing your nutrition. And
Absolutely.
How do you feel? So you look at it like the food pyramid, which we grew up with, that was obviously completely wrong. And now you look at it, if you were going to paint out a food pyramid, what would you say would be the things that we should eat more and the things we should stay away from?
Well, first, let's describe the food pyramid that was out there, that was created by the USDA. It really should be called the agricultural marketing pyramid. That food pyramid was created to sell the products that the agricultural influencers were producing, such as pork and milk and grains. I mean, that pyramid was a marketing gimmick, not a nutritional guideline. And in fact, it had no basis in science whatsoever, nutritional science. So I think that if we were to create an actual pyramid that would be good for humans, at the bottom of the pyramid, the base should always be unprocessed, fresh produce. Fresh fruits and vegetables, grow them your own if you can. If not, get them at a farmer's market or a CSA or a grocery store as a last resort. But fresh produce is going to be your best bet across the board for so many reasons. One of them being that they lack contamination. I mentioned my lab earlier. We've tested a lot of foods for heavy metals, including organic superfoods. And we find that a lot of organic superfoods are heavily contaminated with toxic heavy metals like lead and cadmium. For example, there's high cadmium in most cacao powder products. We found high lead in certified organic rice protein. that's been sold across the market, sold at Whole Foods right now. Very high levels. We're talking like 500 parts per billion lead, over 2,000 parts per billion cadmium. Just unbelievable. But if you go buy fresh produce, the lead levels are almost zero and the cadmium levels are almost zero. So just by eating fresh produce, you can avoid toxins while at the same time you're getting natural medicines that are found in the different colors of the fruits and vegetables. So it's back to basics, man. This is what Max Gerson was teaching decades ago, and it's still true, and it'll always be true.
Yeah. Try to eat food closest to its root. If you can pick it and eat it, that's your best bet. And yeah, it's definitely true. With milk and wheat, are those? I mean, obviously wheat. My understanding now, it was bullshit. They were just trying to sell wheat, and but milk also. I've heard some conversation about the fact that basically a fluid from another animal isn't really supposed to be for humans. Is that somewhat true? Is there any truth to that milk, or is it just the fact that they pasteurize it, or what is it?
I think I'm an advocate of fresh, unprocessed milk. I think that could be very, very healthy in a human diet, even though it's not a perfect fit for humans. It's not bad, but the real problem with milk is definitely the homogenization and the pasteurization, and then also the fact that commercial milk cows are treated with hormones. So you're getting hormones potentially in your milk. You're definitely getting antibiotics typically in those cows, and then you're getting it pasteurized, processed, and homogenized. And remember, the homogenization is so that the milk doesn't separate. It actually alters the milk fats, and it makes those fats more likely to clog your arteries and clog your sinuses. A lot of people who are allergic to processed milk can drink fresh raw milk without any of the symptoms of allergies. So there's a qualitative difference between the unprocessed milk versus raw fresh milk. And of course, the processed milk industry is monopolistic, like almost every industry is, and they've tried to outlaw and criminalize fresh milk, and they've succeeded largely in doing that. And that's why people like James Stewart were threatened with long jail sentences for distributing fresh milk in California. I mean, he was raided at gunpoint. They threw him in jail. They stuck guns in his face, took all his cash, charged him with felonies. I mean, that happened in America.
Yeah. And what's crazy with me about food is the fact that it drives me nuts when I see like a BMW or Mercedes in a McDonald's, drive-through. I'm like, wait. So you spend all that money on a car, but you're putting shit in your body. Like, I'm just
Right.
like, it drives me crazy because it's like, really you're taking, food has become, it's one of those things where it's just become a necessity that you just hurry up and take something in so you can go back to work or on the go, and nobody looks at it as like, it's going to have some serious long-term effects on you, and nobody looks at like, okay, this whole idea. I've made the example with some friends. I'm like, okay, if I told you could only have one car your whole life, one car, once that thing breaks down, you just have to deal with the issues. Wouldn't you change the oil? Wouldn't you put the best gas in it? Wouldn't you do all, make sure you take care of it? Well, your body is that one car. You only have one car. And what you're doing is you're not changing the oil. You're running it, on ball tires, and you're beating the shit out of it. And then you just think it's going to last forever until it starts falling apart. And then by then it's too late. So it's amazing where people spend their money, and I'm sure some of it does have to do with the fact that obviously better quality food is more expensive. But at the end of the day, like, I think a lot of us could cut corners somewhere, maybe don't buy a new pair of sneakers this week, or don't get a super expensive car payment, because the food is way more important. And does things like that drive you crazy a little bit?
I recognize there's a natural cycle in maturity. And so when we're in our late teens and early 20s, most of us have no interest whatsoever in nutrition and health, because we think we're immortal. What 19-year-old doesn't think he's immortal? Tending towards late 20s, more and more people wake up to a little bit of long-term thinking, a little more mature. Getting into the 30s, people start to experience problems from following a junk food diet all their lives, and then they start to typically take interest. Maturity on the nutritional level really kicks in the 30s and the 40s, and this is why most of the people who are really, really hardcore into healthy eating are actually 40s, 50s, 60s, because they're more mature about nutrition at that point. They understand their mortality. They understand that what they eat affects how they feel, affects what results they get in their body and in their brain. It's a natural cycle. So, it doesn't drive me crazy that 19-year-olds are eating hot dogs and hamburgers. I mean, I would wish they would do something else, but it's a natural cycle. I was eating junk food at that age too. So I can't judge others for it. I just try to wake people up as soon as possible and be there with information when they are when their minds are expanded enough to be open to the truth about foods versus health effects. And so, the good news is more and more people are waking up every single day. Even younger and younger people are taking an interest. And as long as that's happening, we're going to keep winning this battle of education and wisdom about nutrition and health and what it means for society, even, because a society that has healthy people is a healthier, more productive society. But a society that has a lot of diseased people is a bankrupt society on its way down. So, we as a nation, America, is going to rise or fall based on whether we can keep our people healthy or diseased. And right now we're falling in terms of disease because the drug companies are making billions of dollars off of disease, and they don't want to change that system. They don't want people to be healthy. There's a lot of money in sickness, man. So if you want to be healthy, you got to realize that you are the only one who has any interest in you being healthy. Everybody else wants you to stay sick. The insurance companies, the drug companies, the healthcare system, the cancer clinic, the doctors, they all depend on you staying sick. You are the only person who benefits when you're healthy. So it's going to be up to you, period.
Well, you're right. And you made a very crucial point. Like, they have no interest in you being completely healthy. If you were completely healthy, they'd all be losing, stock value. Why would a pharmaceutical company or anybody like that, or a doctor, want you to feel good and not show up and not ask for a pill?
Right.
So you're absolutely right. All that stuff is really important, and I think that it's just one of those things where we have to look at what's the most important thing in life, and I think that we have to look at food is one of those things that takes a back burner takes a back seat, I should say, to a lot of things. And I think that it's just one of those things that we have to look at as a priority. And we have to be, basically more cautious about what we eat. And I think people are becoming more aware because, like you said, I think GMOs are becoming one of those things where maybe 10 years ago, most people didn't know what a GMO was, and today people all know about Monsanto. They know they used to make Agent Orange and was a chemical company, and now they're making our food. And so I think all that stuff is really important, and it is just something that people are becoming more aware of. So, but I know you're on a really tight schedule, and I know you're a really busy man, and so I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate all your work to do at naturalnews.com. I hope everybody goes, checks out the website, follows you guys on Facebook and Twitter, because you're always uploading really interesting articles and news, and like I said, it's a great way of keeping up with stuff and new revelations, especially when most of us are too busy working full-time jobs and unfortunately don't have time to do this research. So it's awesome to have places like Natural News to do this stuff.
Well, thank you, Ricky. I really enjoyed chatting with you here. We covered some really interesting topics, and I'd love to join you again at a later time. And thanks for the invitation today. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, no, I definitely would. I'd love to have you back, because there's so much, from vaccines to, I know I have some friends around my age. I have people who are having kids and stuff like that, and they're real just worried about what they shouldn't be doing or what they should be doing. And even myself, one day I might have some kids. I'll be really nervous about my kids taking vaccines and what I should be feeding them and what I shouldn't, and all that stuff. So it just there's a lot of important topics in this in this world of health. So it's just it's really, like I said, it's really important that we have places like Natural News and other people that are Gregory A. Smith, like I said, who's putting attention on big pharma and stuff like that. And I think all that stuff is really important, and we all do our part. I think that's the important thing. I think if you see something on Natural News that you think is important, don't just read it, but share it. Share. I mean, I hate to use my own title of my podcast, but you create a ripple, and do create your own. And I think that the most deceiving thing, and probably what they want us to believe is that we can't make a difference and we can't change things. And I think that little by little, even if it's just sparking a conversation, even if it's just you're with a group of friends having a drink and you bring up something about an article you read or something you saw, or you start a conversation about what we're eating or vaccines or fluoride or whatever the topic is, you're changing and molding somebody's perspective. And I think that's all so important. You know, we can all make our little bit of difference. So I think it's important for us to share, to like, I mean, I know even I'm guilty of it. I see something on natural news that comes up. I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting article. And then later that day, I'm like, fuck, I probably should have shared that. I'm like, somebody probably could have got some use out of it. So all that's really important. So thanks again, Mike. I really appreciate your work, and I appreciate the conversation.
All right. Thank you, Ricky. Good to join you today. Take care now.
Yeah, take care, Mike.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.